Hello there, I am Father Jerry Dias. I would like to discuss with you a short instruction that Congregation for the Divine Faith given on the resurrection, burial, and most importantly, conservation of the ashes in the case of cremation. Now, this document is called as Resurrecendum cum Christum. And what does it say? And what does it teach as church for us? And how is it relevant to us here in Guyana and in the world? First of all, we as Christians accept and believe that we will be rising again with Christ, because Christ has given us that hope, and we hear that in the scriptures again and again. Christ has gone to prepare a room for each one of us in his Father's house. Therefore, we have that hope in Christ. Therefore, Christian dying, death of a Christian person, is not really negative. It's a positive. It has a positive meaning. Positive meaning. That is what this particular document tries to emphasize. And sometimes there is widespread popular understanding which may not be in line with the church's teaching. Therefore, this document had to our instruction had to come up with some important aspects of Christian burial, Christians dealing with the cremation and the ashes. First of all, Christ has given us that hope, and in baptism, in the sacrament of baptism, we died with Christ, and we will rise again with him in resurrection, and that is from the scriptures again. Therefore, we are united with Christ in baptism. Most importantly, we are united with Christ and we became children of God. And we participate in Christ's resurrection. We participate in the life of Jesus Christ. And that is what we believe, because we are baptized Christians. Therefore, Christian, as the formula of a burial goes, life has changed, not ended. When we die, life changes and doesn't end. Therefore, we finish our earthly journey here, but we go on to be with the Father, the room that Jesus Christ has prepared for us. By death, our soul is departed from the body. Now, that is very key here. Let me repeat again. By death, the soul is departed or separated from the body, but in the resurrection, God will give incorruptible life to the body. Okay, therefore it's not really separation of the soul from the body. Momentarily it separates in death, but when we rise again, our body and soul become one, and our body becomes incorruptible. Therefore, in resurrection, the transformation, our body is transformed, and the reunion of the soul takes place with the body. That is very important to emphasize as we discuss these instructions further. Therefore, it is fitting that as church, the church accompanies the dead. Now, during the life, as the children of the church, or the member of the church has accompanied that person in the faith, and even after the death, the church accompanies the dead and helps the person to find that hope that Christ has given us. Therefore, body forms the integral part of Christian faith. So we can't really separate it. We can't really say body is no. Body is important for in other words, dignity of the body is upheld by the church. And burial is very important. Now we all know about burial. We have a sacred place, cemetery, and we bury, and people go reflect, and we have prayers in the burial ground, and so on and so forth. Therefore, it remains sacred. It's not something that we can just dump it and leave it just like that. But we reflect on and become sacred place for us Christians. But there is no doctrine against the cremation, as the document clearly says, for few reasons, possibly reasons like sanitary reasons, economic reasons, or social considerations. And only for these reasons, we can cremate a deceased person. Therefore, there is important that we hold on to that burial part of it. But for these reasons, for the reasons like economic or social or sanitary reasons, the church does allow the cremation. But most importantly, not to lose the dimension and the meaning of the body and the soul. Always are important to emphasize that. Now, for legitimate motives, a faithful could choose cremation, and what happens after the cremation, that is more important. And the ashes should be buried in a proper place, in a sacred place, in a place prescribed by the competent authority, ecclesial authority, not everybody, unless there is an exception done by the Bishops' Conference. Only Bishops' Conference can make that exception. Otherwise, it is always laid to rest, those ashes laid to rest in a sacred place, a cemetery, or a place prescribed by the competent authority, ecclesial authority. Now, why that is done? It is not to make some rules, but this is done for a reason. There is a rationale behind it. That is because if we bury the ashes in the sacred place, we still uphold that dignity of the dead person, of the deceased person, and the dead person or the deceased person will not be forgotten. We will go and pray and offer our condolences, offer our tribute to the person who is buried in the sacred place. Otherwise, if it's prohibited, as according to the doctrine, keep it in a private place or bury it in a private area, possibly in the future, generation after generation, we might forget those ashes, forget that deceased, and we might move on. So what will happen for the deceased? So therefore, the person who is deceased have to live on in the memories, and particularly in the church. Therefore, this document has clearly stated that scattering of the ashes in the air, in the sea, or in the waters is prohibited. It has to be buried in a sacred place, unless there is an exception done by the competent ecclesial authorities or the Bishops' Conference. And also, ashes cannot be divided among the family members as private something to keep it at home, or also not allowed to put it in mementos or pieces of jewelry or other objects. Therefore, it is very important to emphasize that aspect of burial of the ashes. Not allowed to keep it in a private place, not prohibited from scattering in the sea, in the air, or any other place, but it has to be buried in a sacred place. And also it says in the last paragraph of the document, when the deceased notoriously has requested cremation and the scattering of the ashes for reasons contrary to the Christian faith, a Christian funeral must be denied to the person according to the norms of the law. Therefore, sisters and brothers, this is our appeal to you, as according to the instructions, we will hold on to that Christian faith, Christian doctrine, Christian belief of the sacredness, of the dignity of the deceased. That is more important. And when we bury the person deceased in a right place, we give that dignity to that person. The person may not be forgotten. The church remembers, because the person's remains are buried in the place sacred and meant for prayer and meant for reflection. Thank you.